Welcome back to another episode of Sassy AF TV and the Sassy AF audio experience. I'm Hallie Avolio, and it is my great pleasure to be here with my special guest, Whitnie Wiley. She is a speaker, an author, a consultant. She does all the things, the ultimate in-demand woman, and she is going to share some brilliant wisdom with us today about how to shift into action in your life. So welcome, Whitnie. I'm so grateful that you're here.
Well, thank you, Hallie. I'm happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a while. So since we met, a couple of months ago, I've been looking forward to it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, I was really inspired when I first heard your story. Was actually on the Core Woman podcast with Dr. Summer Watson. And I absolutely loved hearing your story and just how you've really catapulted your life into this place of you taking action and doing exactly what you want to be doing. So why don't you tell us your story? Tell us who you are, a little bit of your background, and then we'll get into some of the wisdom that you want to be teaching this audience.
Awesome. So it's interesting that you start with that, because there was a time when I wasn't the action taker that I am now. And it is truly a result of making decisions that or sort of kind of projecting my life in the future and looking at, if my life continued the way it is right now, how will I look back on it? And I had this moment where I was thinking, if I was 80 and I look back on my life, I was like, you're going to have looked back and been miserable your whole life. And in that moment, I didn't want to have what was turning out to be a miserable life, right? And you can go one day at a time, and you go, okay, it was a bad day, or I didn't enjoy it, or didn't go the way I wanted. But one day into the next day into the next, and you're sort of sleepwalking through your life. And there comes a point in time where you have to say, this is not just a bad day. It's a pattern, it's a habit, and it's time to break it. And so I had that. But what's really more interesting is, before I got to that point, I was well aware that I should be making different choices. I should be doing different things. And what I think is important for people to understand is sometimes we can get caught up in a feeling, or in pursuit of something, or stuck behind an obstacle, and it may break momentum, but you just have to keep pushing through, right? You just have to keep pushing through. And yesterday morning, I was sitting out, I do my morning meditation on the front porch. And yesterday, before I went out yesterday was Tuesday, so I went out for a run. I run on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And so before I headed out for my run, I did a recording for a group that I'm in. We're required to do a live. I did a live, and I was talking about the concept of when a body's in motion, it tends to stay in motion unless it's acted upon by another force, right? And how I had to be that force for things that I come up against, the obstacles that come into my life, or any of our lives, right? That when things come up, we have to be that force that pushes through. Otherwise, that force coming back at us will stop us.
Right.
And I didn't want that anymore. And I was recognizing how I was actually the pattern. So going back a little bit, grew up in a house with a mother and father in Berkeley, California. And on Summer's show, I shared, and I don't know who in your audience would understand Berkeley. In the 60s, I was born in the 60s, but it was, free love and hippies and things like that. And so I was born in the middle of that era. I feel like my parents were very much those kind of people. So if you see TV programs or news clips of things from that era, that's who my parents were. And I didn't fit. I totally sort of, really conservative, and into myself as an introvert. I'm an introvert.
Okay.
And I like people, I like being around people, but I love my quiet time, and it's where I recharge. It's where I get my creative juices flowing. Things come to me when I'm either running or in the shower, when I'm by myself and it's quiet. So those are the things that really energize me. And so growing up in a family that was kind of, really go with the flow. And I was like a square peg in a round hole, or round peg in a square hole, or whatever. Right. It just kind of didn't fit the family, I felt like. And so as I grew up, I was constantly feeling like I didn't fit in. And it wasn't just the family, but the people that were around me. And there came a point in time where I had to really stop and think about who I wanted to be and how I wanted to move through the world. And so I was kind of going through life as a little rebel, wanting constantly to do things my own way. And my own way wasn't always the best way. Which is, when you think about people who behave that way, a lot of times they're always right, or they're kind of never right. And I was sort of a never's right kind of person, but I was intent on doing things my own way. And then I met a guy. And so the story is I met this guy. He was from Southern California. By that time I had graduated high school. And my father had really pushed me to go to UC Berkeley. And I didn't want to go, mostly because he said to go. And two, I wanted to get away from home. So I applied to San Francisco State. It was the only school I applied to. I went one semester, hated it. I'd met this guy the summer before my freshman year. He was from Southern California. So in the middle of my freshman year at San Francisco State, I just up and announced, I'm moving to Southern California. I'm going to go to school at Long Beach State. And it didn't work out. The school didn't work out. The relationship with the guy didn't work out. And I ended up coming back home. And it was probably the first time where I stopped and thought, well, maybe you should listen to your parents. And I did. And I buckled down. I went back to school at the community college, eventually transferred to Berkeley. And, had this sitting there thinking, if you had only listened, how much further along you'd be. But that wasn't who I was. It wasn't your path. It's still not sort of who I am. And I am still someone who looks to do things in my own way, but I am much more willing to listen. And as the part of the listening became listening to tapes, I sort of came of age in the personal development at the beginning of Tony Robbins' career. And so following Tony Robbins early on, reading Napoleon Hill and Norman Vincent Peale and the classics in this area. And so I was gathering the knowledge, but I wasn't taking the action. Right. And so I was rolling through life kind of like, I know what to do, but I wasn't doing anything. And, there just came a point in time, Hallie, where I was like, Whitnie, you can know everything. And if you don't do anything with your knowledge, it's useless knowledge. And that was a light bulb moment for me, because I'm very analytical, very logical, and I hadn't really stopped to think about what I was doing. I was just sort of doing things. And my life started to shift at that point. So, I continued. I was having relationship issues. I was having career issues because I didn't finish school at Berkeley. At some point, they kicked me out. I spent a little time outside. That was a definite wake-up call. Right. And my father said, maybe if you're struggling, it's because you're studying something that doesn't resonate with you. I was like, interesting. And I applied, I got back in because I was determined to finish.
What were you studying?
I applied mathematics with
Okay.
a emphasis in industrial engineering and
Okay.
operations research.
Okay.
And so I ended up, I'm still one class short.
You got to go back, girlfriend.
And I have these moments where it's like, you know, you really should go back, hire a tutor, right? And take the class just to get it, just to say I got it done. And so I had my father's voice in my head. It's like, if you're struggling so much, maybe that's not your path. And how do you determine if something, when you're struggling, if it's not your path or if you haven't put enough into it, right? And one has to really stop and grapple with that. And I think where I landed on it was when I started to pay attention to my values and the things that were priorities in my life. And the way that the switch, the shift happened was when I started to think about what I really wanted for my life. What was my vision for my life? And I couldn't really envision a path where math was part of it. Right. And there are beautiful careers that one can have with math, but they weren't really things that were resonating with me. I had chosen to study math because it was the one thing in school that I loved. I loved math. From a child, I loved solving puzzles and problem solving and word problems and things like that. So I just, well, I'll study math. Well, math at the university level was a whole other animal, and I didn't have a plan for it. And so it created this tension and this struggle for me. And when I didn't pass ring theory for the third time, I was like, okay, it's time to
It's a sign.
It's time to look at something else. Exactly. And so I spent some time really thinking about what it was I wanted. And what I discovered when I really sat down to think about it and doing the work that Napoleon Hill says and Tony Robbins and others, it's like, what do you want your life to look like? How are you going to package your gifts and your talents and the things that you're really interested in? And what are you really interested in? And it boiled down to the thing that I noticed that was recurring in my life is that helping people, oddly enough, so don't laugh at me.
I'm going to laugh.
Was helping other people figure out what they wanted, right? And helping them with their goals. And I was a really good goal setter at the time. I wasn't necessarily a good goal getter. But I was really good at helping other people achieve their goals. Like I could see a path forward and could help them do that, even if I wasn't doing it exactly in my own life.
Well, you know what comes up for me, Whitney, is this has come up many times recently, which is the work that we are chosen to do, meaning our true passion and purpose, is often the work we need to do on ourselves.
Yes.
You knew I was going to say that, am I right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I generally think of that in terms of relationships, but I think you're absolutely, I don't think it matters the area. I think you're right.
Yeah,
in every area of our lives, that is and that's why we keep bumping up against it, because it's a mirror for us.
Totally. Yeah.
Right?
And as we grow and we come up against our own obstacles and challenges, we then can learn the lessons hopefully faster than maybe our clients or our, our followers, our tribe. And then we can teach them so they can have those same aha moments. And because they don't necessarily have the clarity of vision of how to move through it. Like you said, you were stuck, but then you knew how to get yourself unstuck. But a lot of people can't see that next step.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. It is, I think it's an opportunity, which is one of my bottom line principles, is that you have to get self-awareness and clarity, because without that, you can't do what you just said. You can't see that if you're not willing to go inside, right? And get some self-awareness, be introspective and self-reflective, and understand who you are and what you bring to the table. And I understand all my flaws. So I am not without a clear understanding of what my flaws are, my strengths, my weaknesses, and how to actually navigate those things that are a challenge for me.
Right.
And so those are things that I do work with my clients to help them with the right question at the right time, so that they can go, yeah,
right.
I can see that. And I can see that now.
Right. Right.
And it becomes that part, which is probably the hardest part for most people, because we are tied to a perception of who we are, who we want to be, who we think we are. And when it doesn't match, right, that cognitive dissonance, that when it doesn't match, then it creates angst for us. It creates a conflict, and we don't know what to do with that. And so we tend to get defensive, or maybe we get depressed about it. There are all kinds of emotions that bubble up, and then behaviors that come out of that. And I have simply chosen, because I want to take the long-term view, is to project whatever it is long-term, and how does that play out. And it's something that I had done, and then it was reinforced when I went to see Tony Robbins for the first time 2 years ago.
Okay.
And the Dickens process that he does, and that exercise, where I then took that sort of projecting out and tied it to an emotion, which then really expedites, I think, is probably the best way. It hastens the process of making the change, because who wants to, if you're stuck right now and you can project out 20, 30 years of what living life every day stuck will yield for you, who wants to live like that?
Right, exactly.
And so we have to be willing to be self-aware, to know that that's something that's going on, so that we can make a change. Because you can't make the shift, you can't take action if you don't recognize where you are.
Right. Absolutely. That's huge. You can't take action and make the shift if you don't recognize where you are. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm just curious, because right now during this pandemic, we've been in it now, what, 7 months or so? And
at least,
I don't know. It feels like it's
hard to keep track anymore.
I know. Remember in the beginning, people keep like, how many days in quarantine, but I'm curious, what have you seen? What are your observations, either with your clients, your friends, your family? People are feeling stuck right now. People are feeling thwarted. People are feeling rebellious and resentful. And yet we know that we have to exercise both self-awareness and patience,
right,
in order to heal what is happening on this earth.
Yes.
So I'm curious, based on your teaching, how do you help people in this way? What can you offer?
I'm seeing things unfold in two ways, and unfortunately it is really sort of diametrically opposed, right? It's not a lot of in the gray area. It is people who are really stuck, or people who have said, shit happens, life happens, and I got to keep moving on regardless of what's going on around, right? And so in addition to studying Tony Robbins and others, I am a Jack Canfield certified trainer, and the number one principle of Jack Canfield's teaching is this concept of E plus R equals O. The event plus the response equals the outcome. And it is a formulaic way of looking at the same things that the Dickens process really looks at, which is you are here, things are going to happen, you're going to end up with an outcome at the end. do you want the outcome that this behavior is going to yield? And if not, you've got to make a change.
Right.
It's the bottom line for both of those. One's more of a process. One is sort of a boom in your face.
Okay.
You have to take 100% responsibility for your life where you are right now. You don't take responsibility for the circumstances around you. No one is that I know is responsible for coronavirus, right? No one that I know is responsible for that. No one I know is directly responsible for, and I live in California, for shutdowns. No one I know is responsible for, a lot of things that are going on, but each one of us is responsible for our reaction to that.
Yes. And I love that. I love that because, a big part of what I teach is don't be a victim of circumstance. Own your choices, right? And that's what you're talking about.
Exactly. The exact same thing. And so you can, and let's be clear, there are some horrible circumstances that have come out of the coronavirus situation, shutdowns, people losing their jobs, their homes, family members that they love, all of that. Make no doubt that there are horrible things that have happened. But in all honesty, those same things happened to people last year.
Yeah.
And the year before.
Yep.
And the year before that. And the difference between this year and last year is it didn't just happen to someone, right? It didn't
now it's
just
happening
happen
to everyone.
To you. It didn't just happen to a friend of yours. Right now, it seems like it's global and it's touching everybody in some way.
Right.
And so whether or not you specifically have lost someone or lost a job, or someone who has. Right. And so that makes it feel somehow different than last year or the year before that or 20 years ago or whatever. So it feels more global. It feels more community oriented or community focused. And so therefore it takes on, it has a different feel for us than if it was just me, right? Or a friend of mine. So, and then the energy of that, or the energy that we feel as people is tied together, right? So instead of one person feeling bad for whatever happened in their life, now you got hundreds, thousands, millions, and the energy of the millions makes it heavy, it heavy overall. And so the only thing you can do, however, in 2020 is the only thing you could do in 2019 and in 2018. And I have a friend who posted something this morning, and it really is this simple. People will push back, but it really is this simple. You can only control you.
Yep.
I can only control how I feel. I can only control what I do. I can only control the choices I make. Yep. I made a decision early on, and every client that I have worked with over this time, I am getting them to do the same thing, is to recognize what they can do. Mm-hmm. And you have to let the rest of it go. You can't, unless you are, in the ear of, Governor Newsom, right? Unless you're in the ear of the president or the vice president or whomever, unless you have the ear of that person, and then you still can't control them. All you can do is influence them. Right. There really isn't anything you can do about the other stuff swirling around. So given what you have to work with, what choices are you going to make? And then take the time to stop and look at what resources you currently have, and are you using all of your resources to the best of your ability? And I think you know, another Tonyism is that it's not about a lack of resources, it's about a lack of resourcefulness. So we have to stop and think about what can we do with what we have, and not worry so much about what we don't have, what we can't control. Like you said, you can't be a victim of your circumstances. E plus R equals O, you know, projecting out Dickens process 20, 30 years. I can't control anything other than the things that I can control. And really the only thing I have any control over is my mind.
Right.
Right. And I can control whether or not I spend my time focused on all the bad and negativity that's going on, or if I can choose to make choices, choose to make other choices in the midst of this.
Right.
And I think about, I was saying early on, you know, I just made a decision that I was going, not in a Pollyanna way, I was going to stay positive. I was going to focus on what I could do, because someone keeps playing this commercial, or it's a public service announcement that talks about, I don't know what the company is, because I try not to be swayed by Madison Avenue, but keeps reminding us that, you know, businesses are always started in down times. There are things there were businesses that started in the Great Depression. There have been businesses that started in the Great Recession, you know, 12 years ago. In down times, positive things are always happening, always. Are you choosing to look for them? Are you choosing to create them? Or are you choosing to focus on the other stuff? Right. And I hate to say it, and, you know, I get, you know, pushback on this. You have a choice. You simply have a choice.
Absolutely. No, I think that's critical, because when you make that decision to own your choices, it dramatically shifts your mindset and your perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right? You feel empowered, you know, actually empowered, and you don't have to, the empowerment doesn't mean you have to save the world, right? It's not your job to carry the world on your shoulder.
Right. Exactly.
Your job is to, going back to, you know, the friend's post, is just do what you can do.
Right.
In this moment, what is one thing you can do that makes your life better, makes someone else's life better? You don't have to save the whole world. And if I do what I can do, and Hallie does what Hallie can do, and my husband does what he can do, and my neighbor does, if each one of us individually does what we can do to have a positive impact or create positive energy, if each one of us made a decision to do that,
the collective,
what a different world this would be. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are some of the things that you do every day, Whitnie, that you hold sacred as your daily rituals that help support this positive mindset and action-based living?
So the number one thing I do is I make a choice every night before I go to bed. I'm getting up tomorrow morning at 4:45. So I get up at 4:45.
I'm an early girl too.
Woo! Awesome.
We'll start texting each other
first time, right? It's the absolute best time.
100%. I'm so glad you said that, because most people are like, you're crazy. What's wrong with you?
You are not crazy. I think you're crazy if you don't. I think you're crazy if you don't, because it's quiet, it's still, and all the distractions of the world haven't started yet. And so it is easy to get started. So I start there. I get up at 4:45. There are mornings when I do not want to. I can guarantee, for those people who say, you know, that's crazy getting, I can guarantee there are mornings I do not want to. But I made a commitment that I would 7 days a week. So not just Monday through Friday, but Saturday and Sunday as well. And I start with a prayer, you know, gratitude, another day, gratitude, water, and then meditation. So I start my first meditation while I'm still in bed, and then I move from my bed to ultimately I get outside and I finish with priming outside then I take the dog for a walk, or if it's run day, we go for a run. And every day, that's how I do it. Included in that is journaling, affirmations, visualization, the prayer, the meditation. All of those pieces together help me to focus on my intention for the day, right? And how I want the day to go. And when I decide how I want my day to go, more often than not, and I would say way more than, like, I'm not talking 51%, I'm talking like 98, 99% of the time, my day goes the way I want it to. There was a time up until, I don't know, about 3 months ago, where I was inconsistent with my morning routine. So 2 years ago, I left my job to do what I'm doing now full time for myself. This is just me, and I sink or swim by what I do. Before that, it was a side hustle. So I had a job. If I didn't do anything, it wasn't of that big a consequence, right?
Right.
So, and now it is very much of consequence. But between the time I left and about 3 or 4 months ago, I had made a decision in my head. I don't need to get up that early anymore, because I work for myself. I can get up when I want. I can still do the same things. I can do it later.
Right.
What I found was that it wasn't happening consistently when I started later in the day.
Interesting.
So I could sleep till 9 and do, but by 9 o'clock, the world is awake.
Right.
And the distractions are coming.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. And so I was like, why are things so up and down? Because you're not consistent with your morning routine. You're not consistent with your gratitude. You're not consistent in prayer. Not consistent with your meditation. Some days I would do some parts of that and not, I was like all over the place. And it's like, if you really want a consistent result, you've got to put in a consistent effort.
Yep.
And when I changed and made that decision to be consistent with which included Saturdays and Sundays, which is really challenging, really challenging, but including Saturdays and Sundays, it has made a huge difference. I will say this though, as part of the deal for getting up every day at 4:45, I gave myself, and I give myself permission, and I know you'll love this because you're a self-care girl, I give myself permission to take a nap.
I love it.
Feel I want or need to.
That's amazing. Well, and naps can be super recharging, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of it. So
yes,
that's awesome. Well, and one of my favorite personal development books is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
Yes.
And he says, consistent actions over time equal radical results. And that's exactly what you're talking about. And I know that you are a fan of habits, and you have a new book on habits. Why don't you tell us a little bit about both your books, but especially as we're kind of in that realm right now?
Absolutely. So I'll start with Crazy Amazing. It came out last week. The title is how to live a crazy amazing life during difficult times. And so it's a compilation book. There are 15 stories, and there are 15 contributors to the book who came together, contributed a story or an experience that they had of being crazy amazing, and how to, regardless of what's going on around us, how to still live an amazing life even in challenging times. Just quickly, my story is, my son passed away in 2005, and so for me, that is what I compare everything to, right? The experience of that, the months, the years after that. And so if I could get through that, for me, it is, I can get through anything. And then I look at what were the things that I did that helped me survive and then ultimately thrive after such a devastating loss. And that's what I wrote about, or the steps that I've taken in order to do that. So each of the contributors brings something to it. The book is actually free. You can get it at crazyamazing.com. The creator of the book wanted to have something to help everybody and didn't want cost to be a barrier to that. So you can get it as a download at crazyamazing.com.
Awesome. I'll put that in the show notes too.
Absolutely. And if you want a physical copy, you can get one on Amazon. It's, I believe, $12.95, something like that. On Amazon, you can have a physical copy. And if you buy a physical copy and you want to get it autographed by some of the authors, contact me and I'll help to coordinate such a thing for you.
Cool. Okay.
And then the other book is One Habit for Entrepreneurial Success. Now, One Habit is a series of books. Entrepreneurial Success will be book number 6, I believe, in the series. It's also a contribution book, which means that there are different people who have contributed to making it happen. It has 154, I believe, contributors.
Wow.
To the book. So there are what's called a habit and an unhabit, or a habit one needs to break.
Okay.
So there's a habit. So there are like 300 habits in this book.
Cool.
It is the biggest book on entrepreneurial success ever published. It is already on the best-selling list on Amazon, as is Crazy Amazing. It was the #1 bestseller on its release date. And so One Habit for Entrepreneurial Success is launching officially on Friday the 16th. So by the time you hear this, it will have been out, but you can still get it. You can get it on Amazon, or you can purchase it at onehabit.com.
Cool. So if you could tell us, what is the habit that you talk about in the book?
So my particular habit is to know when you do your best work. And which for me is in the morning as a morning person. Yeah. And that it's important to know that. So if you're not and it's fine, if you're not a morning person, no shade, no disrespect, but know that, and know that when to schedule certain things in your day that require your best thinking, your best creativity, and utilize the rhythm of your life, the rhythm of your day, the rhythm of yourself. Going back to self-awareness, you need to know who you are to get the best out of who you are.
Right.
And so knowing when you work best so that you can do your best work.
Absolutely. Well, I've been doing a lot of work on non-linear time, and specifically for women, looking at both your cycle, so your menstrual cycle, and if you are not having a menstrual cycle for one reason or another, looking at the phases of the moon and using that and emulating that cycle when you're looking at your time and when you should be scheduling things. Because just like our circadian rhythm for each person, varies whether you're a morning or a night person. Our cycle throughout a 28 to 30 day period as well ebbs and flows, just like the moon. And there's days and times when you're on, and there's other days when you're not. And if you schedule stuff too much on those off days, you're going to feel it dramatically. So that's something that I've been working, in my life with, and starting to teach women about, because I think that it's so critical to really have that level of self-awareness so that you can optimize your action, your values, optimize yourself, optimize your energy.
Absolutely. And that's the big benefit of being self-aware, is that you are able to do that, right? When you can understand yourself in every situation, how you tend to respond.
Right.
What your habits are, how you're pushed or triggered. If you have understanding about those things, then you can work with them, and you can minimize those times when things are not optimal for you. And so I love that. I don't have a cycle, but I certainly can pay attention to the moon.
Yeah.
I like to think that I'm good all the time when I'm paying attention to what's going on with me. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm going to check out that, and I'll check out the moon cycles.
Yeah. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. It's something that I'm really passionate about. So that's cool. Well, we're coming up on time, but I did have some fun, like quick fire questions that I wanted to ask you. So these are like top of mind. Don't think too much, just so we can get a little bit of a better taste of who you are. All right,
You
you
should
ready?
know me better than to know that I'm not going to think
Don't think,
long and
don't think.
hard. I'm a logical mathematics girl. But
Right,
go
so
on.
I'm pushing you out of your comfort zone. All right, here we go. First question. What's your favorite food?
What? Say that again.
What is your favorite food?
Cake.
Love it. That is a good choice.
Actually, it's the 3 C's. It's cake, candies, and cookies. So yeah.
I knew we were good friends.
I got problems.
No, those are good problems to have.
Oh, and ice cream.
Yeah. Can't not have ice cream. I love it. I love it. All right. What is the current book you are reading?
I am currently reading, to get the right name, Liver Rescue.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It is by Anthony William. And so I have 3 of his books. They're health related, but this is about detoxing your liver.
Cool.
And having a toxic liver creates so many problems in our bodies. And so I'm working to detox the liver. So trying to understand that.
Very cool. All right. Next question. When we can travel again, where are you going first?
Oh my God. If I could, I would love to go to the Big Island. But it would probably, depends on the timing. I already have a trip scheduled for Jamaica for December of next year. So I guess it depends on the timing. It was supposed to be December this year for the Reggae Marathon. And it was canceled. So we're obviously not going.
Right.
It's been deferred to next year. So I guess it depends on the timing. So definitely we'll be going to Jamaica next year. If not Jamaica, if travel is earlier, I would love to visit the Big Island. I love it there.
Have you done a marathon before? I know you said you run.
I don't run marathon. That's too far. I haven't run marathons. I've run, I don't know, 17 or 18 half marathons.
Okay.
But I don't do those anymore. Too hard on the body. My dog is too old for training for that. And so it's 10Ks is about my limit right now.
Yeah. Well, that sounds awesome to do it in Jamaica to reggae. Super fun. Well, either way.
Only the 10K. I will not be running a marathon in Jamaica.
Yeah. All right. And my last question, which is my most fun quick fire, is what makes you sassy AF?
I think my rebel nature. When I think sassy, I think sort of hands on the hip. I can do what I want, my own thing, my own way. I think that makes it, but in a fun way, right? I think when I was younger, it was more of an obstinate sort of attitude, and now it's more of it's a fun attitude, and I know that I'm capable of doing whatever I want. And so I do. That's where I am.
Love it.
Now. I do.
That is for sure sassy as fuck. So I love it. I love it. Well, this has been so fun, Whitnie. You have so much wisdom to share. I know I learned a lot from you today, and I know the audience did as well. Tell everyone where they can connect with you. How can they get to know you? And of course, I'll drop all your links in the show notes as well.
Absolutely. So I think the best way to reach me is on LinkedIn. So Hallie can put that in there. I am in, I have a group on Facebook, which is the Dream Job and Career Connection group. And it is about providing mindset and helpful tips for people to connect with the work that they're doing, the work they want to be doing, work that they love. And which is a big passion of mine, is moving people to do things that they love to do.
I love it. Well, I'll put the links to both of those in the show notes so everybody can connect with you. And just thank you so much for being here, Whitnie. I think that you have so much inspiration and wisdom to share. And just, I love how you have really shifted your life to make it what you want it to be. And also that you own your path and you've learned as you've grown, and now you teach that to others, which I think that is truly what inspiration and influence is about. So thank you for giving us a taste of that, just sharing yourself, and just for being such a beautiful soul.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. You are a beautiful soul as well. Thank you for having me on on your show. And I look forward to, I'm so busy thinking about you coming and talking with me on Love Your Work. I was ahead of myself, but looking forward to you coming on Love Your Work. And
me too.
That'll be fun. So
that will be fun. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for being here for another episode of Sassy AF TV and the Sassy AF audio experience. I love having you. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, like, share, all the good things. Always feel free to DM if you have a question, and we'll see you next week. Have a great day. Bye.